What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Above Average podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Ethan Merritt from Pose Fitness. I'm here with Will Marshall from Marshall Fitness, and today our guest is a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu practitioner. He's a law enforcement officer. He does real estate. He has a podcast. We have Ish Lopez.
What's up, guys? I'm Ish Lopez. Appreciate you for having me on. I'm excited. I saw you guys launch this, and I was like, I've never been a podcast guy. And then I started listening to podcasts. And I was like, I'm going to do a podcast. And now a lot of people I know are starting podcasts. So that's what I've been listening to a lot. So I'm excited.
I got into podcasts from driving a commute to work. Literally, I was driving an hour commute and music was killing me. I got burned out on it. I was getting sleepy listening to music. It wasn't keeping me entertained. And I was like, oh my God, for the love of God, audiobooks weren't cutting it. I needed that conversation to kind of like start waking up my brain in the morning, going to work and listen to something at least somewhat interesting. So I started to hear podcasts just from that point onward, really.
That's exactly why I started. I was working midnights for the last 3 years, and there's nights where you only get 3 or 4 calls, So I listen to music religiously. So it all starts to sound the same after some point. So I was like, dude, I need something. It's like I can't watch videos, obviously, while I'm driving. Deer in the road or, that'd be bad. So I was like, podcast, man. And it's I don't like the heavily edited and sounds like 2 robots talking. They're following a script. I like the raw, Joe Rogan conversations. You're talking about, fitness and jiu-jitsu, and then you're talking about how you fell down the stairs last night and this is what made you laugh. And then it's random stuff, but then you can pick stuff from it. Those are the type of podcasts I like. And that when I started my podcast, I was like, it's just going to be raw. I'm not editing anything. I'm going to put an intro, an outro, but if a dude farts on my podcast it's staying. It's just staying. It's going to be raw conversation. So
that's what we were actually just talking about on our last podcast. We were saying, right before the podcast, we were like, man, if there was no rules on social media, ours would be probably a little bit more raw. Yeah, unfortunately, you do have to abide by society and the fact that people, will make a judgment call, but it doesn't mean you got to limit everything. It's just, okay, yes, we're going to stay professional. We don't want to, risk careers or anything, but you should still have an entertainment value. It's a weird thing for social media to say the most impactful thing on there right now is entertainment. That ranks the highest on everything. But you cross the line, you are canceled. I mean, that's crazy. That's so crazy.
True. Yeah. We got to get used to it though, too, I think. This is episode 4. So, I think as time goes on, you kind of get used to just the setup and the vibe.
Yeah.
And then from there, it's just natural or organic,
It's the environment we're operating in, I can see people die on Instagram daily, but if I say something wrong on a podcast,
oh man,
I may be okay now, but in 4 years when society changes, canceled.
Crazy you say that, because I was literally thinking in between, I was thinking about being taken out of context and how easily it can happen. And a couple years ago, I got taken out of context. When I was in college playing in the national championship, I got interviewed by a media outlet here, covering soccer. And I didn't say anything. It was nothing bad. But in the course of the interview, I went to Pitt, I transferred to another school, and I said something about I thought I was good. I thought I was a good goalkeeper at Pitt, but then that sentence ended.
Oh no.
I got the sentence that was quoted was, I thought I was a good goalkeeper. And that's just me. It sounded like I was just hyping myself up. But what I actually said was, I thought I was really good, and then I found out that I wasn't as good as I thought I was. 2 completely different things. But this is also print, so it's different, but it can happen so easily.
I got a quick story about being taken out of context. So we were at Penn State. I went to Penn State, and of course it's the year Penn State went dry. So we go to state patties at Penn State, Maine, and we're boozing it up. We're on the streets, whatever. And there's people interviewing, and they come up to me. Mind you, this is the time of my life where I was completely unfiltered, didn't give a damn about anything. I wasn't even supposed to go to college. I'm I'm just here, so I'm going to live it up. So different mindset, different life. But they're interviewing me, and I'm boozed up, and I'm like, oh, I can't look like an idiot. So I'm like, they're like, what do you think about Penn State going dry? And me and my buddies had a conversation prior to this. And I said something along the lines of like, yeah, I don't understand why they went dry. Like, because there's no booze allowed on campus. And like the people in the apartments near the campus are old enough to drink. I was like, so I think it's dumb because kids are still going to come here. Kids are still going to drink it up. And they're going to do what they want. And now, instead of having an environment that's semi-safe, you're pushing them to the outskirts to do what they're going to do, or they're going to do it in hiding anyway. And now they're not going to call for help if they need help because they're going to risk being in trouble. So like I said that in a way. And that night we're at the apartment, we're drinking or whatever. And the news comes on. I'm like, dude, that's me. And then it's like, what do you think of, Penn State going dry, bro? And it was me, and it was like, oh, I think it's dumb. People are still going to do what they want. They're going to still do, they're going to come here and they're going to party it up and then cut.
And then they cut.
I was like, that is not the message I was trying to say. Like, so yeah.
But it was at that time. Unfortunately, everybody else was like, oh, that's the message you meant to say.
And I'm like, God damn, now I look like an a-hole. I look like that dude who comes here just to drink and be stupid.
Yep.
So it's easy, especially on social media.
I did go to college to drink and be stupid. Like, I did not go to college with a plan. I went there to be an athlete and to have fun. And like, I did not care about my degrees. I started caring about that later, like throughout school, but it was not a place where I thought of it as education because that was not where my mindset was at. Like, I wanted to be an athlete, and whatever I could do to do it, I was going to do it. And that was really it,
Yeah. I didn't go, like, I was working 3 jobs. My kid was just born. So I'm like, I got accepted into college. Oh, maybe this is the thing that like helps me break out of my mold. And then I get to college. I'm like, man, everyone here is like partying it up. I'm like, so I'm going to party it up. Do my 3 jobs, party it up. I ain't got time for school now. So like my grades were like crap my freshman year. And I got pulled in and like, hey dude, like if you don't get your grades up, like you're going to be kicked out. I'm like, kicked out? I'm paying for this. Well, I ended up shaping up and I think finishing with like a 3.4 after I got like a 1 point something my freshman. It was bad.
I was
a big
in the same boat. Yeah. Like I was in the same boat. I was pretty academically bad, and being on the sports team, they were like, you got to fix this. I was like, okay, all right. I think the worst semester I had is the semester I turned 21. That was for sure. I turned 21 in January. And that semester, man, that was bad. I wonder why. I wonder why that was a rough semester for me. But so what's been the transition of having that mindset that you had in college and when you were just younger in general into like the things that you are not only passionate about now, but how was that career spawned and how are the passions attached to that career? So I'm specifically talking about stuff through law enforcement, but you also have other side projects, which I think are extremely interesting that you have gone above and beyond just working and doing a little bit more than that.
So I've always been like a people person. I love talking to people. I love meeting people. I love forming relationships. And despite my past and what I've done, I've always like tried to be good to people. And my upbringing, I always took. Like I was raised in an environment where you had to like survive and take and take and take. And when I got to college, I started thinking about that accountability aspect of like everyone I grew up with was way older than me, and they're still in the same position. Like I don't want to be that dude. And I met people in college where like, they'd be like, hey, come to my parents' beach house, and I'd go and I'm like, man, the world's so big. Like there's so much to this world. And my mind started like changing in the sense of like, dude, I'm responsible for a little human. And like, it's not even about me anymore. It's about like this little person that I have to like put under my wing and move forward, right? But I've always been a people person. And so I've always tried to surround myself with people, form relationships, and in doing, and keeping good intentions. And in doing that, like, blessings have just like stacked on top of each other, because I can't pinpoint one point in my life where I'm like, oh, this happened because of this. But like when I sit back and think about it, I was like, man, I've always like, I'm not going to say I'm perfect and I treat everyone the best, but it's like, I've always had the best intention for people. I've been selfish at times. I've taken advantage of people at times. And, you know, it's something that I always try to learn from and be like, I'm never going to do that again. I'm never going to do that again. And like, I feel like I better myself and change slowly. So I've always tried to just build on keeping relationships, forming relationships, no matter how small. And, you know, one thing led to another. And I was working construction, and I was talking to a cop. There's a cop who would always patrol, and quick story. I was in a manhole, and everyone's screaming, and they're like, "Oh, stop, stop, stop." I put my head up, and a car stops right here. And I'm like, "Oh, dude, I was almost beheaded." That's how I started talking to that cop, because he ended up responding to that. And one day he's just sitting there, he's like, "Bro, you should be a cop, dude. Like, you're good with people. You're good with talking to people. Like, you'd make a good cop." I'm like, yeah, right. Like, ain't no way. Like, things I've done, and now. So I was like, you think I could be a cop? He's like, yeah. So I signed up for the academy, became a cop, all that stuff. And it was more for like, I want to be the person. I always strive to be the person that I needed when I was growing up. Like, that is like my main goal in life. You know, the person I needed someone to talk to, didn't really have that. I want to be that person for people. I wish that I can be put in a place where I can like help people. Like, there's this guy, Lucas Siebert, actually. He was on one of my episodes, and all he wants to do is fight. That's his passion. And he hit me up. He's like, "Hey, dude, like, I'm accepting sponsorships for my training camp to help me go to, I think he's trying to go to Worlds or something like that." And I'm like, I want to be the dude where I can just be like, "Dude, how much do you need? Like, I'll put you through that, because you have good intentions. You mean well. Like, let me sign a check. Let me put you through that." Like, that's the type of dude I want to be for people. So I needed that growing up, because I didn't have that. So that's kind of my motivations and everything of like what I try to do in real estate. Like, I have a career in law enforcement. I don't need to do real estate. Like, I benefit because if I sell a house, I make a lot of money, and I can do a lot of good with that money. So like, my relationships in real estate are genuine. Like, you don't want this house, I'm not going to force you into this house, because I don't need to force you into this house. My bills are paid. My family's taken care of. I'm good. You know, where I meet a lot of other agents where they're like, and this isn't the majority of them, but I've met a few where I'm like, this is your career. This is what pays your bills. And you're like being slimy about it. How? Like, how can you do that? Like, you're pushing people. Now they're in the house. Yeah, you get a check today, but these people are miserable for the next 10 years. How? Like, how can you do that? Right. You know? So like, what are my motivations of just like doing good so good could be done? You know, and if I can inspire one person with my podcast, or that I talk to in law enforcement, or, you know, in real estate, if that trickles down somehow, then, you know, my mission's accomplished. A little rant for you.
No. I mean, a lot of what you said there, I mean, just about wanting the best for people. I think being in business is super important, because, I mean, from my perspective, like, I'm an online personal trainer, and I'm the only employee. Like, I sell, but I also do the training. And
always employee of the month, by the way.
Always, every month, 4 years straight.
Running.
Yep.
He's on the running.
Yep. And, but the thing is too, is like, you know, I'm not looking to sell anybody something they don't want. You know, if someone's not reaching out to me about wanting to get fit, I'm not in their DM saying like, "Hey, you need to get more fit." That's insane. Like, that's not my job to tell people that they need to do that. And, you know, there is a line between like, okay, well, I do need to have clients. I do need to sell personal training because it is how I live my life. But at the same time, like, I need to make sure people end up in a better place at the end of their time with me than when they started. Like, I tell people that all the time. Like, it's a business, but it's a results-based business. And if I don't get results, I don't have a business. So giving people more than what they expect from you, I think in the long run, I think in the beginning, it's hard for people to do, because they think, oh, I'm giving so much, I'm getting nothing out of it. But after a period of time, it always comes back to you some way.
Especially if it's a service that is needed, right? Like, you're not pushing cigarettes, you're not pushing vapes, you're not pushing alcohol, all things which are cool if you do. But like, fitness helps with mental health, helps with health. Like, you're pushing a good service, right? And so like, it's good to push that, you know, but not be too pushy, in my opinion, you know, because how do you feel about the trainers online who just like poop on other trainers, or like poop on, oh, you're taking this supplement, that's a shortcut, like do the hard, because if anyone, I preach hard work all the time. But like, I'm not going to sit here and poop on you if you know, there's these medicines like semaglutide. It's a big thing now in the fitness industry. Mm-hmm. You know, there's trainers out here. I've seen videos of them pooping on people for taking it. And I'm like, how can you sit there looking amazing, doing an amazing thing, offering an amazing service, and completely exclude an entire, because like, you know, that's let's talk business. That's an untapped market. Yeah, you're on semaglutide to help you shed weight. All right, perfect. Let's help you build muscle. Let's help you build discipline. Let's help you get in the gym and form good habits. You can easily sell it like that. Instead, I've seen trainers go on there like, oh, if you're doing that, that's a shortcut. You're not going to have the body you want. It's like, do you think those people now want to look up to you?
Absolutely.
How do you feel about those trainers or people who do that? Like they'll poop on this business to like raise their business.
Yeah, I think there is a part of social media, especially when you almost have to like take a stance on something, and then because and not to defend them, but and maybe that's not the example to use, but certain things, like, I mean, there's people that, you know, say, for example, like the holidays, like you can ruin your progress over the holidays. That's not the position that I take. Like, I think you should enjoy the holidays. You work hard 360 days out of the year. You can take one day, you'll be fine. But then there's other trainers that take the opposite stance, where like you could ruin your progress. And they may or may not believe that, but I feel like it comes down to a narrowing of the market. Now, again, to your point, I don't think anyone taking this new medication, because it's a different thing. Like, I mean, these people have never dealt with obesity before. And maybe people are dealing with that their entire life. And then they find this thing that finally works. And then to then tell them that they're taking shortcuts is crazy. Because at the end of the day, like, it's a whole other world that you've never experienced. And then to then tell them that they're doing it the wrong way, like, I don't think it's not needed at all. I don't even think you need to touch that.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. They're not at fitness. They're not into fitness. They're not anything. And then to tell them you're doing it wrong. It's like,
for what?
Yeah. What?
Well,
no, that's a good way to put it.
And like historically, how many things that we see in fitness was not around 60, 70 years ago. And somebody, for God's sake, would have probably thought you were crazy to do certain things that we do now. And it's very standard, science-based, but it took getting science and results for people to be like, oh, wait, that is actually very adamantly. Creatine, great example.
Creatine 20 years ago was a steroid.
Yeah.
You're taking creatine? You're taking creatine? It's like, now it's like the most, literally one of the most studied supplements on the market that works.
And it's very, you know, and like that specifically too, like in its rawest form, it's like very cheap, affordable, and it does work very well. It doesn't necessarily work for everybody the same way, but it works really well. There's really not a lot of drawbacks to it, realistically, you know?
When I was in high school, one of my friends started a rumor that our gym teacher was taking creatine. And like back then I was like, oh shit, you can't
started a rumor, dude.
Yeah. It got to him. It got back to the teacher and he was like, hey, you can't say that. And like this is
like he's doing meth in the bathroom.
Right. This is over 15 years ago. And then when I was in college, I took principles of strength and conditioning. We were talking energy systems, because your body does make a little bit of creatine. And the professor says, who in here thinks supplementing creatine is bad for you? Everyone raised their hand, including me. And then she went on to say, like, it's the most well-studied supplement. Like, it's been shown, and this is 6 years ago at the time. It was like, it's been shown to be safe, like up to 12 weeks. And that's in like clinical trials. And so could be likely as safer beyond that to take longer. But at the time, that was like the standard. It's like, we know it's safe up to this point. And then right there, I was like, oh, wow. And then now I'm like a huge proponent of creatine. I think everybody is now, because everyone kind of caught on to the fact that there's no issues.
I put creatine in everything. I know it's like supposed to use like 5 to 7 grams a day. 5 before, 5 after a workout. It's like, you can never have too much creatine.
Did you ever do the loading phase with creatine?
No,
I haven't done that.
I've never done that.
I did that once.
And then
How was it?
Awful.
Do you like retain a lot of like water weight?
It wasn't so much like, I didn't notice any retention. This was in college, and like I worked with our nutritionist at the time to do it. And like, I'm new to creatine at the time, and there was only a certain couple brands that I could take that were like NSF certified just for NCAA. And so the one I had was like watermelon flavor. And so you got to take 20 milligrams a day, break it up into 4 servings of 5. I was leaving class to go to the bathroom. Like, I was peeing constantly because it was just such an intake of fluid. So I did that for 7 days. And I mean, like, the effects of it besides just having to like go to the bathroom 14 times a day. Like there wasn't anything outside of that, but the watermelon flavor got old very quickly.
Do you eat watermelon now?
I do. I mean, that artificial watermelon doesn't taste anything like real watermelon, but I mean, it was just now like you can do that. You'll feel the effects sooner, but it's not like necessary.
Yeah, I've never done the look because I've probably read when me and Fish had Valor Labs. We each like read research reports before we released any supplement, and I had creatine. So I was like I did a huge dive into creatine, and like about 50% of the studies I read believed in the loading phase, and 50% of the studies I read didn't believe in the loading phase.
No way.
So it left me in the same place. I'm like, how do I tell this to people? So then we released a little like, hey, if studies do show that you can load it, but other studies show it's not necessary for what most people are going to take creatine for. And I just pushed it out, and I'm like, you draw your own conclusions.
Yeah. And there's nothing on this planet that is worse for you than pre-workout they had in the early 2000s versus creatine. That stuff was
at Jack 3D.
Jack 3D, the old C4, like Redline, any of those things. I was like, I was taking that as a teenager.
You know what the hot ingredient in that was?
What was it?
DMAA.
DMAA.
The same chemical makeup. I guess the one carbon is moved from cocaine.
Oh, yeah, that's what I thought you were going to say.
You know what? That kind of tracks with how I was feeling in high school, taking this stuff, doing chest and arm days.
Ingesting it, bro. Ingesting it.
Yeah.
I mean, not to say up your nose is a better way to do it. It's not. But
it's going through more systems.
Yeah. What? Yeah. DMAA. And of course, because they removed it, I'm like, I need to buy it. So I got my hands on years ago a bag of pure DMAA.
Oh my God.
And it came with a scoop. And the scoop was like this big, and you needed one. Like the scoop was this big.
Wow.
And it was a stick like this. And I'm like, hold on. Like, this has to be bad. And I had a bag. And I'm like, maybe this is bad for you. Maybe this is bad for you.
And that was on all the stuff. And like, I remember 2006 through 2008 is when I was getting into pre-workouts for the gym. And I was in high school. I was a teenager ingesting this. And I don't think the dude at GNC knew that he should have even carded me. I don't even know if he had to at the time.
Yeah, he probably didn't.
And we thought creatine was bad. And we were just taking synthetic methamphetamine.
Yeah.
You know?
Essentially, it's what it was. Dude,
crazy.
Look it up after this. One carbon moved. It's like you put up cocaine chemical makeup, DMAA chemical makeup. I think it's like one carbon moved. Yeah. Everything else is the same. Now, I'm not a chemist, so I don't know what that carbon move does to your body, but like, I'm like, we're ingesting cocaine.
You can't be good.
There's something going on there.
So where have you been now with your fitness journey in general? And broadly speaking here, I don't know if you want to go down the rabbit hole of what you've done prior competitions or what you like want to do in the future, but where are you at and kind of how does this tie into like what you like doing and what you do for work?
Getting jacked and juicy.
Getting jacked and juicy.
Oh yeah.
No, I'm kidding. That was my goal. My goal was to just get big, right? It's like
that was every dude's goal.
Yeah, eat obnoxiously, lift heavy, but the older we get, man, sad I have to say that now. But joints start hurting, things start giving. So, but with my line of work, like I learned being mobile, that's more important than being big because, yeah, big is cool. But it's not really applicable, especially in jiu-jitsu, right? Yeah, I can't do most things people can do in jiu-jitsu because I'm just not mobile. So I've been working on a lot of mobility stuff. I still do strength. I still lift heavy, but I also do conditioning, and I started adding in like, what do you call it? Like plyo, whatever, like explosive movements. There's a word for that. I'm sure.
Plyometrics.
That.
Yeah. That's the one.
I speak two languages, so sometimes they mix. Adding a lot of dynamic movement and stuff like that so I can become more mobile, because I work, I have to run before I catch someone. Usually that's how it is. If someone's going to resist me, they're not just going to stay there for me. They're just like, so that, and it's also helped my jiu-jitsu a lot too, my mobility and being able, not that I'm that mobile still, but that's my goals are more now, becoming more mobile, becoming more dynamic while still remaining jacked and juicy.
jacked and juicy, but able to function. And you're a blue belt right now, right? Which I know like belts don't matter, but it's just to give the idea of like you've done it for like more than just like 6 months at this point. You've done it a couple years to be able to get to that level. You're at
3
like,
years now.
Yeah, a few year marker. Yeah. So how do you manage working on all those things together? Because I've done a little bit of jiu-jitsu and I do climbing and I do lifting, and it's not even necessarily the time management, but just understanding how to try to program it so you actually get the most out of all of them.
So I just do everything to like max level. Like there's no rhyme or reason to what I do. And it's probably not the most effective, but like the way I look at it for me is like if I go my hardest during training, like if I have to utilize it out there, like I'll know that level I need to be at. So like every Sunday, I literally sit down on my calendar and I'll put in, like, I want to hit up jiu-jitsu 3 times a week. Okay, cool. When are the best days to do it for me? I want to go to the gym 5 times this week. I'm usually at the gym around 4:45 in the morning. Boom. So I schedule those. Schedule work. Schedule any meetings after my fitness stuff. And then I want to hit the range up 1 day this week. What day is free? What day can I tie it in? Boom. And I do as many times. So like if I want to go 5 days a week, if I'm able to schedule it 7 days a week, I'll do that. That way, if I need to be like, I can't make it this day, let me cancel it for gym, jiu-jitsu, and range. So like my week will look like I'm going to the range 7 days a week, gym 7 days a week, jiu-jitsu 7 days a week. But by the end, it's like I went 4 days for the gym, 1 day to the range, and 2 days to jiu-jitsu. So I'll overschedule myself. And then as the week goes on, I'll see where I'm at. I'll see how I'm feeling. Because like I said, I just go max exertion. And in the gym, that's cool because it's a very fixed environment. But in jiu-jitsu, it sucks because the dude is literally trying to kill you. So, and I got paired up the last week. I couldn't hold the mount to save my life. Really? I was so frustrated. One of the most functional, like you learn this your first year in jiu-jitsu. Couldn't hold dude in my mount. He's just like slipping out. And I'm like, what is going on with me, dude? I go on a little rant on Instagram and everyone who does jiu-jitsu hits me up. They're like, bro, like this happens. Like this is normal. It's a purple belt, a brown belt telling me this. Black belt gets in my stuff. He's like, yeah, dude, man, we all have those days. And I'm like, y'all just trying to make me feel good. So yeah, that's my training's been, yeah, that's where it's at.
There's a weird strength with jiu-jitsu. It's weird because I'm pretty strong for my size, generally speaking, but I've never been powerlifter strong, right? But what I've noticed is some of the strengths I had from other sports helped me there, and my strength didn't. And that was the weird part was I'm like, oh, my flexibility helped me a shit ton.
Oh, yeah.
And not that I didn't think it would, but like especially like my legs and my hips where like in climbing, I can do a lot of stuff with it too, but there it was incredibly useful. And it wasn't even like, it's a strength of mine, but I didn't realize how much of a non-strength it was for other people. That was the weird part with it was when I was trying it with other people, I'm like, oh, they're not as good at that, even though this dude's way stronger. On the flip side, the same thing happened to me with other areas. So it was really interesting to see like different strengths and technique, but like you wouldn't expect it. And that's the interesting part about it. It's not linear at all, but it's really tiring. It's really strength built. It's just a different kind of strength. And it's like almost hard to describe.
It goes back to my functional and dynamic movements that you have to train, right? Like I can squat a lot. I know it doesn't look like it, but I can squat a lot. In jiu-jitsu, that really doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Because if I'm trying to hold someone in my guard, like you need to have whatever the back muscles on your leg are. Hamstrings, yeah. I speak 2 languages. Like you need to have a big word. You need to have strong hamstrings, but it's not just strong. Mm-hmm. Like you need to have functional strength because yeah, if I can pin you here, that's good, but it's getting you there, right? So I'm essentially doing a leg curl with you, but it's not like a fixed leg curl,
right?
Because this dude's like pushing off you. It's very dynamic. So your fibers need to twitch in a different way than someone who just goes into the gym with a steady rhythm, steady tempo lift, like so different.
Right. And you're like holding positions, which is really interesting. So you'll be caught with an arm really far down and then the other one planted, or you're trying to not plant it because then they might grab you. So you're holding a weird position where I'm like, in what place have I ever tried to hold like on the ground, like this sideways position where then I'm like working my thoracic spine. I'm stuck on one arm. Someone's trying to fuck with my legs at the same time. And I'm just having to sit there and like breathe.
What's the biggest thing they preach in the gym? One of the biggest things.
Oh, I don't
form,
know.
right?
Yeah.
Good form.
Form, always.
What is good form?
In jiu-jitsu or at the gym?
In general. Like you train at the gym. I don't lift weights anymore. That's what I would say. I'm going to go lift. I don't lift weights anymore. I train. Like when I go to the gym, I have a specific goal in mind. I train because what is good form? If I'm in jiu-jitsu, like you said, I'm essentially doing a row because I'm holding your lapel here, but now I'm trying to get around your back. So like I'm holding you here doing a row, but now I'm extending myself over here. This isn't good form. Right. I'm all twisted up. Where's my strength right here? Like if you don't train this ever, it doesn't matter. Like it's like my buddy who boxes, his conditioning is insane. Runs 6 miles a day for fun. His first time doing jiu-jitsu, he was gassed.
Really?
Gassed. Absolutely gassed. And I'm like, well, you don't train that.
Yeah.
Like you're fighting a resisting opponent and grappling nonstop. Like that's a different type of workout. It's a different type. I used muscles I never thought I even had.
The first couple of times when I was sore in weird areas. Like my neck was really sore, which is kind of obvious when you think, you get your neck pulled, but like I never had it sore before like that. And I've kind of trained it at the gym lightly, doing like small things, but I was was stiff, like in every direction of my neck. I was like, he was grabbing my legs most of the, what the hell was I doing to make my neck sore? It was just the strangest thing.
My abs were destroyed. And I train abs, but they were destroyed. But think about it. When you're on the ground, you're balled up like this because you don't want to be flat. So you're balled up and you're constantly moving. And it's like you're using these little nuanced fibers that you're not used to training at the gym. Like,
right.
Unless you see some dude on a mat at the gym with like a bar and then he's like doing those ab scoots. Like, yeah, that's a good way to do it. But it's functional training, functional movement. And like, so like I'll still do my heavy lifts, but my accessory lifts will go around like, how will this benefit me if I'm like fighting somebody at the supermarket or like I get in a roll at the jiu-jitsu or like someone at work, I'm like trying to pull them out of a car. Like, how can this benefit that? So that's how I try to like steer those accessory trainings and the accessory movements now.
Yeah. It is I have no experience in jiu-jitsu at all, but hearing you say like, what is good form? Like I think of, cause obviously like say for a deadlift, for example, like you want to have, a flat back. You want your head in line with your tailbone, but then you take people that train like a Jefferson curl, for example, which is like, some people say that's the best thing ever. And some people say, it's unsafe. But the idea of a Jefferson curl is to build strength through a flexed spine. And thinking about jiu-jitsu, it's like, you could train in the gym, deadlifting, squatting, benching with good form. But I would imagine in jiu-jitsu, like you're not in the same position. You're never going to be in the same position often. Right.
Yeah, so like, moving.
So how could you ever train for that? Like, from a lifting perspective, like you really can't do it because it's, it's almost like, in the gym, you're going to get in ruts where you're moving the same way all the time because it's safe and that's how you should do it. But it's not going to prepare you when you aren't doing those same movements.
Yeah. And like form is built, I think, too, around like progressing in an area, but maintaining a safety around it. Whereas jiu-jitsu, there is safety, but you're not worried about the safety part of the movement, the specific movement you're doing. You're just trying to make sure that you're like working within that range of like get out of a position, but you're not doing a repetition of something that's safe to do it necessarily, So you got to kind of work like a puzzle piece to make it safe instead of just having to be so linearly safe where it's like, okay, you bend your back in a certain area at the gym, you might get a bulged disc, you might get a hernia. In jiu-jitsu, you will get a ton of different injuries that are way more expansive. So where's the safety there,
Dude, this finger's been like, I don't know if you can see, it's like crooked for like 2 months now. Because I grabbed someone and it just like hit. Like you get stupid injuries like that.
Yeah.
Or your back goes out.
Yeah, I got one of those too.
Yeah.
It doesn't go away.
Yeah, that one's a lot.
Yeah,
that one beats mine.
Yeah.
I haven't had any from climbing, but I have a lot of friends that have very thick knuckles, like swollen, issued knuckles that are like very bad looking. So
you dislocate a finger, like it's never going to go straight again.
I've never done that. Thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds bad. But yeah, you're right. Like, there's always there's a way you train, and then that you want it to mimic real life, but how, like, I'm in charge of my department's DT, right? So we want to put officers in an environment that's stressful, that is almost realistic, but it's also has to be very safe, right? Like, yeah, I can have my gun belt, you can have a gun, and we can be like, let's make it real. Like, if I get your gun, I shoot you, you know, but that's the last time you'll be training someone. So you have to mimic real life without, like, how close can you get to that? In the gym, it's very safe, you know, you're fixed, but then you actually have to do the thing or something close, like with soccer. I'm sure you guys had gym workouts and then skills training, but then you have a game.
Yeah.
Like, that's the best. The more games you play, the better at soccer you'll be.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know, and the same with jiu-jitsu. Like, I haven't done many competitions, so that's where I'm like, that's where I'm hurting myself, because you can train all the time, you can go all the time, but unless you put yourself in an environment where a dude doesn't care about you, like, I'll roll hard with my partner. My partner's also not trying to hurt me.
Yeah.
They're not trying to kill me. They care about my safety.
Yeah, because that person's your equipment.
Yeah.
Essentially. Like, you don't just break your gym equipment. It's like the same thing.
You hurt your partner, he doesn't come back for a couple weeks or a month or so, like, now you hurt yourself. But in a competition, the dude don't know you or the chick don't know you. She don't really care about you. Like, there's a mutual respect. But if you're at ADCCs, which is one of the biggest competitions, you don't care if you hurt that person. They put people through tables, literally, like, because it's allowed, you know? And if I can put you through a table, I'm going to. So there's that environment of like, all right, well, all this training I've done, it's time to use it. It's time to apply it. Same with like the street, like at work. Like, this dude trying to get away from me doesn't care about me, doesn't care about my family, doesn't care about my partners. He cares about getting away. He's not going to play by rules that I have to play by.
Right.
So how do I prepare myself for that situation? And that's how you should structure your training with anything. Like, you don't have to be a cop. You don't have to be, but, you know, you see these videos of like these guys coming up and trying to take kids from moms. And the one video I'm thinking of specifically, she like falls onto the ground and she just can't get up. Like, she's trying to get up and she falls again because she has no balance. No, it's like, you have done a disservice to your family.
Right.
Or these dudes who, you know, some guy comes and harasses your old lady or your whatever, and then these guys just like can't do anything. It's like you're doing a disservice to your family. You should be able to defend yourself and the things you care about. Like, if someone breaks into my house, that is the last time that will happen. I can assure you of that, because of the things I do.
Yeah. And I think what Stout does specifically that I think is really, really good, and I for sure want your take on this, is you go to these fundamental classes where you're learning basics, and it's sort of like you learn a specific part, you practice the specific part, they add on another little part, then they add maybe one more, and then you do like a live roll where you piece together what you've learned, and if you know a little bit more, you do it for about 5 minutes. So all of the parts before that, I would say, are not a live rolling format like you've seen watching anything on Instagram or TV. It's like you're just doing kind of the steps and the repetitions, and really you're just working with the guy and being like, okay, I think I'm doing this right. And like a coach will walk around and coach people. So they make you do those classes for a while to kind of get all of the basics in sort of I would guess, like a cycle of all of the basic areas before they let you kind of do like the free-for-all classes, which is the open mats. So I haven't even gone to an open mat before, but I think it's really fundamentally good that they do that, and other gyms don't do that at all. And I find that interesting that they will put you in open mats. And I've heard this is that, you know, you risk getting people injured too early, but then they just don't want to come back. It might not even be a horrible injury. It's very discouraging to then get an injury your third time. And then you're like, oh man, it's just going to be the same thing where I'm going to show up and someone's just going to like beat the shit out of me, and which like happens. That's part of it. Yeah. But how do you get people more involved if you can't give them like a little bit of structures and then have that free flow where they can practice all the structures?
Yeah. I mean, that's what CrossFit gets a bad rap. It's the same idea. You know, like people go in Olympic lifting 135 when they've never done it before in their life, and then
Right.
Then they're
it's the hardest thing they've done, and they're like, fuck this. Like,
yeah. highly technical and you're just going to get thrown into it like that. And then you're going to get hurt. And then you're like, oh, well, CrossFit's bad for you. It's like, well, no, you just didn't do it right. But it's not your fault.
And I think CrossFit as a culture started as the whole culture shifted better into that. Whereas as before, I believe it was a smaller group of people and it seemed a little bit more like a free for all of that entry point's a free for all.
Yeah.
You know, and other gyms do stuff differently though. So I find that interesting because Stout has that structure. And I know it's also part of a business model. Like I'm very aware of that too, but the structure is less discouraging because you have to learn the basics and you can't.
So one thing I could say about Stout is like, I don't want to say they don't care about the money because they really don't. Like what they care about is introducing people to jiu-jitsu. And what I love about what they do is exactly what you said. Now they even have an intro class. It's like if you've never done jiu-jitsu, you have to go to at least one intro class. And in that intro class, it's very slow paced. They walk you through the different positions, what the positions are, what's the most advantaged position, what's the least advantaged position. Like they walk you through kind of like Jiu-Jitsu 101. And then there's fundamentals Jiu-Jitsu where he was talking about these classes are technique based. So you do a technique, cut it up in steps. You rep it. Then you add something. You rep it. You add something else. You rep it. At the end, it's very fixed live rolling. You're going to start in this position. You're going to start in this position. Your goal is to remain in mount. Your goal is to get out of mount. And let's say this lesson was just how to get out of mount. So if you find yourself in this position, or this position, you will reset. If you find yourself in this position, that's kind of a halfway point. So keep going. If you find yourself in this position, you win. Then you roll. Boom. Stop. Switch. Roll. Stop. Switch. Change partners. Roll. Stop. Switch. Same thing. Then there's intermediate. You learn a higher level technique that probably it's hard for you to grasp at fundamentals. So you learn a higher level technique. And the roll is, all right, we're going to live roll. And these are the starting positions. And you're going to go until someone taps. Go. And I can't really speak on advanced because I'm yet to go to those classes. You have to be a 3-stripe blue belt or above, I believe. And advanced is like an even higher level technique with more time to roll. And it's kind of like, all right, we did our technique. Let's roll. And then, but what I like is they have open mats after each class. So let's say fundamentals, like me as a blue belt, I'll go to either intermediate or fundamentals, depending on where my schedule allows. So if I go to a fundamentals class, it's a little of a slower pace for me, but then there's an open mat after, which if you have 3-stripe white belt or above, you have access to. And this is more for a safety thing for you. So now you do this class, and then you have an hour of, hey, whatever you want. Like you find a partner and you roll. It's not fixed. It's not anything. It's just like, hey, Ethan, you want to go roll real quick? Yeah. All right. Me and him sit down. Hey, dude, my guard is a little crap. Like let's work on my guard stuff. So he gets in my guard and we go. There's no structure, no anything. You're just going. And then they have like timers nonstop. So you can like go with the timer or you just go. And you see some people kind of like taking it chill and they're just working through movements. And then you see some people, you're like, dude, they hate each other. Like they're just trying to kill each other. But another class they offer is called drill. So you learn a technique, you learn the opposite of that. So like how to defend that technique. And at the end of that class, it's called flow rolling. You just do the technique, you get out of it, you repeat. Do the technique, you get out of it, and it's just to like drill it into your head of like, an elbow escape, and then he stands up, and then you take him down, and then now that person is in the position to get out, do an elbow escape, you get up, so it's just repeating. I love how they structure their stuff because if you're an expert in jiu-jitsu, there's something for you. If you've never done jiu-jitsu, there's something for you. And I always tell people the ass kicking doesn't start until you're at least a blue belt, because everyone knows and everyone's cool. Like I got paired with a new kid yesterday, and dude was probably like 160 pounds. I'm 230 pounds, and we're in no gi, but we're doing the technique. And he's like, "Oh, you've obviously done this a little bit. Like, how long have you been doing this?" I'm like 3 years. He's like, "Today's my first day." And you can see like deer in the headlights. And I'm like, "No, you're good." And then we go to live roll. He's like, "Oh, here comes the ass kicking." I'm like, "Bro, no, like you're good, bro. Like we'll take it at your pace. Like I'm not here to like kill you or discourage you from doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Like I know,
You're not trying to flex your ego at that moment.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna play it to you. Like the harder you go, the harder I'll go. You know, there's times where we were doing mounts. I would push him. I'd give him something to see if he would take it, and the kid was picking up super fast, like to the point where I was like, oh, okay, well now I gotta step it up a little bit. So like I would give him something to see if he'd take it, and I would let him roll me over. I'd let him escape, but like I gave him pressure. And then for the last one, I said, okay, I'm going to pick it up a little bit. And I just smashed him just to like remind him jiu-jitsu does work.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. Because like, I mean, a blue belt, generally speaking, can hold their own against anybody that doesn't know anything, generally speaking. If you took the biggest, strongest dude on the planet, he still just might like throw you. Like you can't stop getting picked up and thrown necessarily. Like sure. I get thrown by you. But if you were 6'9", it doesn't matter if I'm a black belt. You can still just pick me up and just off I go. You know. But I find it to be a fascinating sport because it's a forever learning sport, and it is forever challenging. And I think there's longevity in it versus other sports and interests. Because like as I get older too, I've gotten injured more in the last year than I have in my whole life. Literally 10 years span, I've had maybe one injury. In 1 year, I had like 3. I was like, what is going on here? And I'm not doing anything crazy, but it's making me remind myself I need to like adjust, dial back things that I need to, and make sure that, you know, I can actually have longevity here.
What I love about jiu-jitsu is one of the only martial arts that you can train at full speed and mitigate injury. Like nothing against Krav Maga, because I've also trained that. I try to train it as much as I can, but like you can't really go 100% in Krav.
Yeah.
You know, because you're like, and then you'll gouge the eyes out. Like you're repping it. You're not really doing it. Like it's going to be hard to put your finger in someone's eyes and actually do it if you've never done it.
Right.
Or like, you know, now you're going to, you know, if he swings this knife, you're going to do this. And it's like, you need someone to swing at your full speed to see how this would apply. Jiu-jitsu, you can go 100%. Yeah. And then you get into a submission and then you stop and you're like, hey, dude, I can break your arm if I wanted to. And okay, I tap.
Yeah.
It's one of the only martial arts where you can go 100%. That's why it's evolved so fast and so quick. And it was actually developed, I believe in like Japan for people, for like the warriors to fight people in close combat because their metal was hitting armor. So they had to develop a system to fight people with melee weapons and stuff like that. So yeah, I'd say it worked if it's been that long.
It has worked. Outside of sport of jiu-jitsu and getting juicy, or as I like to say, twisted steel and sex appeal.
Hey,
what
t-shirt?
What else are you involved with? Because you were mentioning earlier that you know have a deep connection and passion for people, and that's been not only a passion, it's part of your career. But what inspired you to start doing a podcast and to kind of go down the routes you've been going on with business?
So the podcast came from I like loving talking to people and hearing their stories. You know, like I've gotten to where I'm at today being inspired by people. And the podcast is a little selfish because I can learn from people. And all the people I bring on, it's like people I want to learn from. And then I was like, dude, all these people are everyday people doing crazy things. And I'm like, it's such a cool concept to just like interview people who, if you saw walking down the street, you wouldn't bat an eye. You wouldn't know who they were. And their stories can change your life. Because that's why I'm here, because of people's stories that have changed my life and changed my trajectory. So the podcast stemmed from like me wanting to talk to these people, right? Because no matter where I'm at a bar, at a restaurant, dude, I'm that annoying dude talking to the server, talking to the waitress, talking to. I was in Florida and we were getting breakfast, and the dude just like our server's just like singing, like aura. Dude, by the end of our lunch, he's sitting at our table. We're having conversations. He told me about how he beat cancer, how he was supposed to die a year ago and survived, and he's so grateful for his life, and that's why he literally sings at work. And I'm like, dude, and I'm over here in Miami, stressed about my life. And this dude wasn't supposed to make it. And he's just living his best life. Eye awakening. That same trip, I came from a hotel. We were at a bar at the hotel. And the bartender there, cool dude. We're actually friends now. His name's X. And he's always like, "Yo, when you come to Florida, let me know." But like we hit it off, bro, at a bar talking or whatever. We started talking about magic tricks and all this and that. And he started telling me a little bit of his story. He's like, "Hey, dude, I'm done at 5." And I'm like, "Dude, we check out today, but our flight is until tonight. But like, you want to meet up after?" He's like, "Yeah, dude, let's meet up." We meet up at the beach. He starts doing backflips. We start talking. We end up going to the place where we had lunch earlier, and we meet the server. So now I introduce them to, and I'm just like, dude, this is crazy how life works. Like the relationships you form. So I was like, man, if I can sit with people and talk, like, why not record it? Because if our conversation can inspire someone else, that's awesome. And my first episode wasn't even an episode. It was me talking about what the podcast was going to be, what to expect and stuff like that. And someone very close to my life messaged me. She had stopped running. It's my stepmom. She had stopped running because she was like almost abducted. Some dude came up to her, like tried to pick her up, put her in a car. She's a real small woman. She had stopped running. One of her passions in life, dude. She ran every day. Stopped running. She's like, she calls me Muscles. She's like, Muscles, like listening to your first episode, like it's really inspired me. Like I'm going to start running again. I'm going to start going to the gym again. And I'm like, damn, I didn't even launch an episode yet. So I was like, this is something I need to do. Like for me to learn from people, bounce off. I mean, I just met you because of the podcast,
right?
Me and Ethan, we would hang out here and there and stuff like that. But like, this is the first like conversation outside of a bar or something that we've really had, really,
right?
And it's gotten me closer to the people at Stout. It's connected me with people with 247 fighting championships. Like Hunter, awesome dude. He's the manager for them. Like like Cody Gamble, dude from the Mat Factory, comes up. Like all these connections I'm forming, and it's just opening up doors. And I'm like, where most people be like, "Oh, these are doors for me." I'm like, dude, I can connect so many people with so many people doing this. We can just create a community, like a community of people thriving to be better. So that was the inspiration for the podcast. And ever since I launched it, man, I get DMs of, people telling me what they love about it. People telling me what I should do. Someone, performance inspired. Mm-hmm. So the guy who owns that with Mark Wahlberg, he's going to be on my episode in 2 weeks.
Wow.
I'd have never thought I'd have that dude. I'm like, why would he look at me?
Is he going to be here?
He lives in the area.
Oh, wow.
And if you saw him, his name's Tom Dowdy. If you saw him, you wouldn't even know who he is.
Really?
Dude runs Performance Inspired. He's like cool with Mark Wahlberg.
Wow. Like
stuff like that. You're like, well, that's local? You're here? Like Performance Inspired is in Warrendale.
Yeah, there's we do have a lot of talent that's still in this area, and people think, it has been a growing place and a growing place to live in general. It's definitely changed from what I understand. I did not grow up here, but there's opportunities that we can build here. And I think Pittsburgh sometimes needs to do a better job at maintaining that and bringing more people in, truth be told,
Another dude, Lonnie, who agreed to be on my podcast, he started High Rollers. High Rollers is
I've heard of that.
A huge jiu-jitsu competition. And every year they have cops versus stoners in Vegas. And the High Rollers, to be in High Rollers, you have to smoke weed before you roll.
The cops do, because they're
the cops. No,
yeah, I was gonna say.
But
they just force the.
But for the High Rollers competition in general, you have to be high to roll.
Oh my god,
it's huge.
That'd be detrimental for me.
No, dude.
No.
And those
me and weed are just like I would.
They kill it.
I would not do good.
And I'm like, bro, how can you smoke and then like do this? That's impressive. So then they launched. So I was on the Adopt a Cop program.
Yep.
Which Mitch Aguirre started. That's what got me like really spearheaded into jiu-jitsu. Well, Mitch and them teamed up to like bridge the gap between like weed and cops and stuff. Cause like it's weed, dude, whatever. But like there's this stigma surrounded about weed and marijuana and stuff. Well, Mitch Aguirre and High Rollers got together and they're like, we're going to have a competition with cops versus stoners.
That's amazing.
Lonnie's supposed to be on my podcast this season.
That's amazing, man. And
he trains out of Stout. And that's Wiz Khalifa's right-hand man.
How long have you had your podcast now, though? It's been
I started in September.
Oh, wow. It hasn't even been a year.
Bro, I have 15 episodes.
You're crushing it.
And it's just like crazy how like it's opened up so many doors and introduced me to so many cool people and stories and like things that I now apply. Like when I had Britt, I don't know if you saw the episode with Britt. I sat down with her and I lost train of thought most of the time. So I'm just like, dude, she's fucking spitting fire. Same with Lucas, spitting fire. We start talking about manifesting and picturing your future and things that go. And I'm like, damn. So that's what led me to start the Relentless Project, because so long as you, and this is my definition for success. If you stick with something, no matter what it is, if you do it for long enough, you will be successful in it.
I said that on the last one.
Yep.
I say to my clients, you can only lose if you quit.
Yeah. With fitness,
exactly.
You know, and I use this metaphor all the time. When you go to the gym, you can have the toughest workout. You go home and look in the mirror. You are the same. You look the same. The next day, same thing. The next day, same thing. You do that for 3 or 4 months, and you look at you and then how you started. You're like, damn, I got definition now. I'm stronger now. Like, you don't see those incremental changes until you start looking back. Same with Jiu Jitsu. I had Mike Wilkins, he was UFC, Bellator, phenomenal coach. He was on the podcast and he told me, and I'm like, dude, I still suck at Jiu Jitsu. He's like, why are you comparing yourself? Like, I compare myself to Christian Schaefer. I've been doing Jiu Jitsu for like 2 or 3 years. He's a blue belt. And now he's in Texas training with like Big Dan and like huge Jiu Jitsu guys, because he's just immersed himself in it. I compare myself to him. I'm like, I'm a blue belt. He's like, yeah, but don't compare yourself to people. Look at, like, you would kick yours ass when you first started. The person you are now, you would destroy him.
Yeah.
And I'm looking, I'm like, that is so true. Like, if I compare my progress to myself, I'm like, yeah, I'm tenfold better than I was.
Well, and it's the same progress that you're now seeing with the podcast, and that's only going to grow exponentially, you know, because it's not just with fitness, but these things apply. And that's why we have like the Above Average podcast. I think it's above average in mindset and action. It doesn't mean you need to be The Rock, but, you know, if you wanted to get a physique a certain way, like, it's just about putting in that time and work and like growing in that journey. You know, I think that's where it comes from.
Dude, it's so true. I was at our belt promotions and I walk in and I like during belt promotions, in Jiu-Jitsu, I kind of like sit by myself and chill and I say hi to everyone. There's this dude next to me who keeps looking at me and he's like, hey, are you Ish? I'm like, yeah. He goes, dude, I thought it was you, man. Like, I just want to say, like, your podcast. And he goes off on my point. He's like, I didn't want to approach you, dude. I was like kind of nervous. I figured everyone would be around you. I'm like, nah, dude, I'm just a normal dude. Like, I just talk on a mic. Like, it's the people I'm interviewing that's how I feel about the people I'm interviewing.
Right.
That's how I feel about the people who come up to me like, dude, I want to be on your podcast. But I have a story, but I'd probably never make it on your podcast. I mean, you got a story? I'm willing to listen. Like, it's a matter of just when I can put you in. Like, when I first started my podcast, I wanted to do every other week. And I was like, there's no way I can have that many people on. Like, that's just a lot of people. Like, I don't know that many people who'd be willing to jump on a random podcast. And now my problem is I don't have enough space to fit people with my schedule. Like, I can do 3 episodes a week with the amount of people who came in, but eventually you'll be on. And I tell people that, like, don't think I forgot about you. Like, there's a list with everyone's name on it and you will be on. It's just a matter of when. And so, like, you see this growth and I don't see it, but then people come up to me like, man, your podcast, like I was telling you earlier, dude, in the shower, just naked. Oh, dude, your podcast. I'm like, oh, dude,
the best time. It means
a lot. Yeah.
That's the best time to get a compliment. You never know what that compliment might be.
Raw, unfiltered.
Very raw.
Yeah.
So our podcast is, you know, we're kind of like in this next phase of it, this next season. So we appreciate you being on here, specifically because you come from a podcast and from a background through fitness as well. So I find like we've had a lot of commonalities, and like you had said before, like we hadn't like sat down very often outside of like going to an event. We have some beers. I saw you at a concert, and I was actually not drinking. I was on my final days of 75 hard. I was like, you look like you're having a little more fun than me. I'm on day 70, I think it was.
Tequila, bro. I love tequila. I'm like, oh, he's like, I'm on 75 hard. I'm like, oh, I know about that. I did it. It sucks. It's like the reading part and the 2 exercises, one outside. That was the hard one for me.
Yeah.
Because like, I'm not a runner, if you couldn't tell. And it's like, well, I already did my strength training. The only exercise left is like conditioning. and it has to be outside and it's pouring.
Yep.
Like that's tough, but
that's hard.
It puts you in a mindset of like just doing it, like having to do hard things. If you do hard things, they become easier. Like people want to avoid hard things. Like your life doesn't get easier. You just get better at managing hard things. That's all it is.
Exactly.
Being relentless. Plug.
Shameless plug right there. If there's one other like last statement that you wanted to put out there, advice that you've had, because you spoke earlier about speaking to being that person that you needed when you were younger. If there was something that you wanted to say that, you know, for better or for worse, you can only say one statement, you can only give out one piece of advice, what do you think it would be now at this time?
Oh, dude, that's tough. I have a book of just advice, but what I would stick with is just start. Just do it and stick with it. You know, like in anything, you want to get fit, just go to the gym. You don't have to be fit to go to the gym. You get fit at the gym. You know, you want to change career paths. Start doing research of that career path. You know, you want to get into real estate, take the classes. You want to invest in buildings, buy your first house, buy your first building. Like just do it. Just start, because you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great, because if you never start, you're never going to be great at it. So whatever it is that you're like, that thing, you're like, man, this is what I've always wanted, just do it. I had that struggle with the podcast. I'm like, I don't have the best mics. I don't have the best video. I don't have the best, I can't start it yet. And I want to start a podcast for like 3 years, bro. 3 years. And one day I sat in my kitchen. I was like, in my dining room actually. And I'm like, I'm just going to start. I'm just going to do it. And I started recording and I was like, oh, I didn't like what I said. Start all over. I'm like, whatever, dude, just go, just talk, just start, and then launch it. And then I have no choice but to stick with it, because now people have an expectation of listening to more episodes. And that was the best decision I've ever made, is just starting. So that would be my bread and butter.
Hell yeah.
That'd be it. So I think we're about to hit time here. That was good. I was appreciative of having you on here, because I look up to you in a lot of ways with this kind of stuff, man. Like we wanted a guest on, and I was happy to make this introduction because I was like, Ish is going to be a great character, because he's a great character. He has great character in everything he does. Even
main character energy, huh?
Yeah, he's got main character energy, you know? So I was like, you know, hearing that and then saying, you know, you've got the background of the interest and the hard work that we're trying to promote and push out here to other people. I think that that's why we want people like you on here, and we want people to tell their stories in the same sense. So we appreciate that.
Yeah.
So
Dude, it was perfect. I mean, a lot of the stuff that you were saying, like organically, I mean, like obviously we just met today, but I mean, we didn't really talk about what we were going to talk about on the podcast, you know, but then a lot of the stuff that you're saying is stuff that we've talked about on other episodes or with other people. And so, I mean, it couldn't be a better fit. I mean, just a lot of the messages, all the stuff that I think we put out, and I mean, the mindset, I mean, so many people could learn from a lot of the things that you said.
Well, I appreciate it. The pleasure's mine, man. I appreciate you guys inviting me, putting me in your space, and I'm excited for you guys' podcast. I'll just add it to the list of podcasts I get to listen to. So
sweet. Well, where can people find you? Go ahead and give us places they can find you for your podcast, personal, professional, whichever one you want to put out there.
So therelentlessproject.com. We're on Spotify, Apple, all the major streaming platforms. We're on YouTube, Relentless PRJCT. So yeah, I'm the Ish Lopez on Instagram. If you guys want to follow me, from there you can find my real estate. I can buy you, sell you a house, whatever you want to do. Give you fitness advice and push you to him, because he's the expert. That's what I do. I connect people with the people they need to be connected to. So I'm just like the middleman.
The best middleman. The main character middleman.
I try. I'm a hell of a wingman.
All right. Until next time.
Later.